Well, this is a blessing for a preacher, this gospel. This is the easiest gospel in the entire book of Gospels. Say yes. All it says is, I'm telling you, you've got to be careful concerning the well-being of others. And if you're not careful, you're going to hell. I can sit down now. It's so simple. This is the Lord's commandment. Love one. There's another verse here that it's from John 15. It might be Last Supper. We're not sure, but if we were present as disciples of Jesus, everything he says to the apostles, he would say to us. And I think I'm in verse 7, I think. He says, as much as the Father loves me, I love you. And remember what I just said. He's talking to you. And every time I say those words, I feel like sitting down for an hour. Jesus is telling me, as much as God, as much as the Father loves me, I love you. And you will remain in my love if you keep my commandment. And my commandment is, love one another as I have loved you. There is no greater love than for one to lay down one's life for one's friends. And it was only 2 years ago that I realized what that means, and it's very, very important. He's going to judge, at last judgment, we're going to be judged on the basis laying down your life. Doesn't mean dying, but it means becoming a shepherd. That's what that's all about. Shepherds lay down their lives. Say yes. Now, I grew up in Iowa, but I was a townie. But I don't really need to go to farms in Iowa to know what shepherds do. All I have to do is read the scripture, because it's all over. Shepherds are mentioned probably 200 times in more than 200 times in the Bible. And laying down your life, I have something similar in my life that I can relate to you. When I was in late teenage years, I became a lifeguard in my hometown, and I became I became a lifeguard for about 5 years. And I can say this, that lifeguards are very similar to shepherds, because before I was hired, I had to promise to lay down my life if needs be. Notice I'm still here. Of course, I was a lifeguard in Iowa. If I was a lifeguard in Los Angeles, I probably wouldn't be here. But see, that's what laying down your life means. It means you take care of those in your charge. See? And of course, this is very interesting. We're in charge of everybody. See? Everybody in the world is in charge of everybody. See? And we're going to be judged on the basis of how well we served as shepherds, as caregivers. See? Now, let me ask you a question. I hate asking this. Let me just say this. How many people would be dying of starvation if all of the disciples of Jesus right now realized that we are shepherds? Answer. Right, it's a no-brainer question. Next question. Hate asking this. Is world poverty increasing or decreasing? Let me ask it again. Is world poverty increasing or decreasing? That's what I thought you said. You're all wrong. So let's do it again. Just change your answer. Okay. Wait a minute, I didn't ask it yet. Is world poverty increasing or decreasing? There's a coffee problem. The first time you all said increasing, see? Okay, we can't spend any more time on this. The correct answer is world poverty is decreasing. And you're not alone. I can't believe this. Oh, listen to this. Only 4% of the world population realizes that world poverty is decreasing. And it's been decreasing ever since 1969. And world poverty, abject poverty, was very high in 1969. It got up to 49.7% of the population. But in the ensuing decades, it's been going down, down, down. And World Bank had this big meeting in Colombia, South America, 3 years ago, big meeting, 2,000 delegates, and the topic of the meeting was world poverty. The very first thing they said, you're all wrong. World poverty isn't down to 20%. They said it's down to a little bit less than 10%. And ever since then, everybody is saying we're going to get rid of abject poverty by the year 2030. And what that will mean, we're talking about abject poverty, what that will mean is nobody after 1930 will die of starvation. Now, that having been said, that doesn't get the poor out of the woods entirely. And you know why. Because there are 5 things that everybody needs for life to be other than miserable. You need food. What's the second great need? See, you know all of these. We're just reviewing. You need water. You need shelter. You need education. And you need access to medical care. Now, in 1930, the only one of these 5 fundamental needs for a happy life that will go away is death by starvation. The others will be mitigated but won't go away. And my view, I just got this view, I've been doing this begging for over 20 years, for food to the poor. My view is that if we work just a little bit harder, we can get rid of the whole thing. And when 1930 comes, no one will have any of these 5 problems. And to my mind, this is half of there are 2 reasons why I'm here. One is to congratulate you for what you've been doing. We're doing great. The other part of this, my trip here, is to tell you if we just do a little bit greater, we'll live in a world in 2030 where everyone has access to all of the fundamental needs of life. So what I mean here in terms of what you need to do, I'm asking you to give to the poor today. But the other 50% of the giving is I'm asking you to be an evangelist, to tell others. You see, the main reason I'm telling you this is because the main reason why many people don't give to the poor is because they think it's impossible to help them. I just came back 2 days ago from Guatemala. And I was amazed at how much we're doing for the poor. These people are extremely poor without help. And I've been to Guatemala before, but I couldn't believe it because we were spending a lot of our time in the 4 days I was there looking at villages that were situated on mountainsides. And their main occupation for life is growing corn. And coming from Iowa, I could not believe it because I discovered that when they plant corn, guess how they do it? They're living on a 45-degree angle. They can't use machinery. They have to plant each kernel by hand and pick it by hand. But anyway, things were great. The last day, I was there 4 days, we visited a hospital that we built in it's a combo. It's for 3 villages, actually, and it was one of the best. It's hard to believe. It's one of the best hospitals I've ever seen in my life. They treated children, and it was very interesting. The parents of the children, they would be able to stay for free as long as the children were in the hospitals. And wonderful doctors. Everybody was very, very happy with the treatments that they gave. But notice without these hospitals, these people would have nothing that would help them, if they were seriously ill. But it was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But nonetheless, it's still very hard. One of the projects now is to bring the schools together so that the 3 villages that I concentrated on last Thursday would be able to build a high school and also a grammar school for all of the children in the 3 villages. But it was just amazing how much good we've done, and the people are so thankful. But they have a very hard life, and you can see that very easily, I think, when you consider that you're doing corn kernel by kernel. But what all that means, though, these people are basically happy now, but they still have a lot of needs, and it's because of your generosity. Let me see now. If you would take a brochure now, there should be one for everyone to take a little look. If there are too many in your pew, move them backwards to help others, but I think there's certainly enough for each family to look at. Notice when you perforate the brochure, you end up with an envelope. There will not be a second collection at this Mass, but I've put a basket at this only exit to the sides. It's to my left here. You'll probably see it if you leave from the side. And there are 2 baskets at the back of the church, and you'll know that they are food to the poor baskets because there's one of these brochures in the baskets. I'll also be at the back. If you want, you could bring your brochure to me, and I'll be the basket for you. I want to point out some things with regard to this envelope section of the brochure, and I think this number 4 box is very important. It says, our family is going to give so many dollars a month. I hope that you will seriously consider becoming a monthly. One of the wonderful things about monthly donations is that at least once every month you will think about the poor and pray for the poor. Half of what we do for the poor is really intercessory prayer, and that intercessory prayer is praying that those who are rich will be able to provide monetary help for the poor. We have something that happened 3 years ago with regard to monthly, and it's simply this. Food to the Poor decided 3 years ago that if you become monthly, then you no longer have to promise to pay for a whole project if you want to donate to the project. Up until 3 years ago, if you wanted to help with housing, you would previously have to mark box 1 or box 2. Now, just write housing in this upper right, and we'll put all of your monthlies into that category. While I'm talking about that, the biggest killer now in the developing world is lack of clean water. Now, Food to the Poor, we're almost 40 years old. We have built thousands of wells in the last 40 years, but they're always for a whole village. And it turns out, and they're somewhat expensive now, the average cost is around $6,000, but it turns out that if you become monthly, for every $4 you contribute monthly, guess what? You will be able to provide water for life for one brother or sister. And to my mind, that is a fabulous gift. So I'm begging you to do what you can. Now, with regard to this house thing, I want to talk a little bit more about housing. It says, box number 1 says $3,800 will be matched to build a home for a poor family. A little less than a year ago, a small group of super rich donors decided that if anyone comes up with half of a house, that's $3,800. When that's received, we will immediately call one of those other donors, and they'll send the other $3,800. And what I want to point out here is that you could do a match, go for this match with another family or several other families. For example, if you went together with 9 other families, each family would turn in with one of these envelopes $380, and all 10 would come to $3,800. And then when you send it in, we'll immediately call one of those other donors to send another $3,800 and immediately build the house. And then, of course, since 10 families are involved here, when we build the house, we'll take a beautiful picture and send it to 10 families, or send it to one. You have to give them a general address so they can send 10 copies of the picture of the house you're building to all of the families at the same time. There are probably other things I could say, but time is running out. If you have any questions about any of these projects or whatever, see me after Mass. I'll try to answer any questions that you have. Main thing, though, I'm telling you, be an evangelist. Tell the good news that we are doing great. And I end by saying, wouldn't it be wonderful to be living in 2030 if we're successful in getting rid of not only abject poverty, but poverty, period. That would be an incredible thing for us to think about and to live through. And as I'm pointing out now, it would be very, very easy. We just have to tell more people how easy it would be so that we can all work together as Jesus commands us.